As a Hollywood enthusiast, you must have seen how he switches intermittently from a cynical grin to deliver off a seductive coloration to his thick mustache and hairy torso. His name is Burt Reynolds, and he made himself a Hollywood Prince Charming and became the heartthrob of many. But I'm not sure he broke hearts the way he was hurt. With those magnificent screen appearances, he became one of the leading symbols of the 1970s. Sadly, he had himself to blame for a devastating life immersed deeply in prescription pills that almost took him to an early grave. Was Burt Reynolds destroyed by women? Make sure to watch the video until the end and leave your thoughts in the comments. If you're new here, join our wonderful community by subscribing to the Matentis channel. Women and prescription pills, the two things that dealt with the famous Burt Reynolds. Burt Reynolds was an amazing icon and was one of the world's most recognizable celebs. He was a likable character, unyielding to upset. They say he's the guy not to be trusted with women unless you want him to take over your girlfriend. Burt and his dazzling mustache outlook were one of the golden boys on screen. He knew about his charm and he took advantage of it, but it could not stop him from facing fate, personal struggles in life. He's among the last A-lister film characters. He lived extravagantly and was more glamorous in real life than in the movies. The mustachioed superstar struggled with substance abuse in the latter part of his life, following addiction to the contentious prescription sleeping pill, Halcyon. Would there ever be another Burt Reynolds? He was a special breed of the last vanishing movie stars. He was also delightful to watch and very appreciative of the public's unending devotion. The Smokey and the Bandit star was one of the highest-paid actors of his time, but some of his sins were jumping from bed to bed with several glamorous ladies. Farrah Fawcett, Goldie Hawn, Dinah Shore, Sally Field, you name them. Expressing regrets, Burt Reynolds told fans that his separation from Judy Carn made him a bachelor for several years. I guess some of the women were just satisfied being mistresses. Everyone thought that Burt Reynolds used women the way he wanted, but regrettably, he seemed to suggest the opposite. The scandalous ladies' man admitted that women messed him up. When his addiction trouble started, Burt was so eccentric that he found himself consuming 5 to 6 sleeping pills simultaneously, and as many times as in a day, just to be able to put those sexy eyes to sleep. A writer described Burt Reynolds as a shorthand for male sex appeal, whatever that means. The truth is that the star was an exceptional talent when it comes to women. While his name also rang loud in The Longest Yard and Deliverance movies, Burt won for himself the People's Choice Award for Favorite Motion Picture Actor and gained an all-around entertainer status for 5 consecutive years within 6. That was how famous this gentleman was, but his fans today still discuss the high-profile romances and tantalizing philandering regarding this famous personality. All he does is to artistically switch on his charming or rather winning smile with crinkled, sad puppy eyes, and his female audiences would have been taken to heaven and back, with many remaining in that state and waiting for him off camera to bring out the ecstasy in them, the reason he had many women to grapple with. Fans went agog when Burt Reynolds appeared half-naked on the centerfold of the International magazine. At the climax of his career, Reynolds was the biggest box office attraction in cinema, especially after his show on John Boorman's Deliverance. Not too long after his demise, we heard how Burt Reynolds' life became wasted and disheveled. He had gone through a total loss of muscles to the extent that he couldn't walk without full support. That may just be one of the ironies in life. The once greatly athletic and energetic actor, despite enjoying the kind of fame very few actors can compete, and earning commensurate pay too. Some said as a young man he did lots of stunts that came back to haunt him in the latter part of his life. I heard that Burt had to go through several surgeries just to remain alive, but sadly, aging and addiction was a big factor that complicated things. Burton Leon Reynolds, Jr. is the son of Harriet Furnett and Burton Reynolds. He was born in 1936 in a family traced to Dutch, English, Scots-Irish, and Scottish ancestry. But for Reynolds, Cherokee and Italian may be the best way to describe his origin. Not very much is known about his childhood, but Reynolds provided some hints about being born in Lansing, Michigan, a place he said he lived before his father was conscripted to the United States Army. He had an exceptional freshman period in football, but while a knee injury threatened his career, he had a car accident on another knee that eventually killed his football dreams. Burt enrolled at Palm Beach Junior College, and by the time he returned to Florida in 1957, Burt was still interested in playing football, but his performance was hindered by the car accident. He decided it was over with football after his team blamed him for a match loss that year. He left football, and perhaps inspired by the Florida State Drama Award he won while at Palm Beach Junior College, decided to try acting. Under the tutelage of Watson B. Duncan, his English teacher, Burt was encouraged to participate in the play Outward Bound. Duncan had given him the lead role because he loved how he recited Shakespeare in class. That role gave him the school drama trophy. No wonder Burt described him as his mentor and a powerful influence in his life. From Florida, he moved to New York to try his luck in theater. He was quickly signed by Hollywood Studio, where his journey began in earnest. But there's something about his personality that is captivating. Reynolds had no issue getting beautiful women because he was so good-looking. Is it also true that he toasted women for his friends? His college roommate, Lee Corso, would depend on him for a girlfriend. "I used him as bait," he had said. Burt would walk across campus and return with two girls, one beautiful, the other not. Lee was always happy to be with the ugly girl because he believed that Burt's ugly girlfriends were better than anyone could get. A quick highlight of Reynolds' affairs shows that his marriage with actress Judy Carn ended and the much elderly Dinah Shore warmed his bed for a time before the likes of singer Tammy Wynette and his beloved Sally Field came into the picture. Not even his late marriage to actress Lonnie Anderson and the son adopted could stop him from falling for a cocktail waitress, Pam Seals, an affair that came with its peculiar controversy. Burt Reynolds was vocal about his relationships with women and how they made him feel and how things finally turned out to be. After Reynolds became a movie prodigy starring in the Gunsmoke television series, he decided to try marital life. While on a promotional tour for the movie, he met Judy Carn. Describing how he felt the moment he saw her, Burt Reynolds said the young lady was so adorable and absolutely not immoral, but amoral, bawdy funny, such a pixie. She was wild and danced on tabletops, whereas he was such a Southern boy. He fell in love and couldn't wait to have her. The feeling was mutual, as Carn asked him to dine with her later that day at home, where she prepared a delicious meal that she finally used to hook him up. Their affair was cemented in 1963. Sadly, just 2 years after, the union already hit the rocks as they were divorced. And when that union ended, Reynolds hinted how he lost interest in women. But did he? "I just couldn't go out with anyone. She broke my heart, she did," he was quoted. On why it happened the way it did, Burt said he didn't think she still loved him. "I loved her, but there were problems." While that may look like the quintessential Playboy confession, Reynolds didn't remarry for several years. That marriage was particularly luxury, and the manner they ended was even more extravagant as the day of reckoning. He remained single, but was definitely not searching because he had enough women in the background, including a long relationship with Dinah Shore. Burt and Dinah met on her talk show. He instantly became her youngest boyfriend. It didn't matter that he was several years younger than Dinah, because their relationship lingered for a long time until something finally happened. Reynolds described once how he was lost in the wilderness with Dinah and how he got himself out of her territory. It seemed he was happy to be free from such a wonderful woman as Dinah Shore. His experience with women like Dinah may just be the reason he felt that women made him a useless person, as if he was always helpless under their grip. The undoing of his second marriage is another source of discussion. After several years of bachelorhood, Burt decided to do a second missionary journey on the matrimonial vocation. At this time, it was to Lonnie Anderson, a lady he met on the Merv Griffin Show in 1978. If you can trust anyone in this romantic journey, you can trust the instinct of a philanderer if it involves beautiful women. So when Burt saw her, he was impressed, and the first thing that captivated him about beautiful Lonnie was that she wasn't an airhead. Perhaps he wanted a change of scenery, or do we say that of taste? It took him a year and a half later, after he fell in love with her, to gather the courage to move into a marriage that eventually was bedeviled with different epic tales of struggle and an unending grief that defined the latter part of his life. It wasn't clear on when or how it started, but facts available suggest that Burt Reynolds got addicted to sleeping pills, known as Halcyon, for over 4 years, following an injury sustained on his jaw while shooting the 1984 City Heat. Reports say that the pain from the injury made him restless all through the years. It became so intense that he could go with several pills at a time, and as many as 50 a day. With such an addictive lifestyle, it was only a matter of time before something happened. And expectedly not too long after, we heard that he couldn't wake from his usual sleep. He had gone into a coma. The situation nearly took his life, but for Providence. Afterward, Halcyon as a drug came under intense examination. If my memory serves me right, the said drug is linked to memory loss and hallucinations, and as far as I can remember, it is now illegal to use in Great Britain, while the Food and Drug Administration continues to review its safety. After Burt Reynolds survived that incident, he knew that fans were anxious to know what happened. He told the media that he was hapless with the situation. I couldn't beat it on my own. Whether Burt Reynolds' story would serve as a warning to others or not is not debatable. The truth is that this horrible experience is not something you could wish for on a friend. After breaking and shattering his temporomandibular joint, the pain, according to him, was more painful than a migraine. It's like having an army of people inside your head trying to escape through your ears, eyes, and nose. And it continued days and nights, he had stated. The only way he could dull the pain was to take as many pills as possible. He soon realized that his life was in danger with continued consumption of the medication, and he was in a coma that lasted for about 8 or 9 hours in a Los Angeles hospital. Reynolds had a personal out-of-body experience of death during this period because he could still remember hearing the doctors tell his then-wife Lonnie Anderson, "We're losing him." It got to a point that she was instructed to say her final goodbyes, while Burt was comatose, listening helplessly. Burt Reynolds' issue was different from normal drug addiction, so he didn't need to be taken to rehab. "When I regained consciousness, I never took another Halcyon," Reynolds wrote in his memoir. It was such a near-death situation because he learned from the doctors that he could have died if he had taken one more. "I would have died. It was that simple," he declared. But just when fans thought his health battle was over, Burt Reynolds entered a new phase of health disorder because several months after, he submitted himself for rehab because of the same issue. It was at this time that he told the public that despite being supposedly a big tough guy, I couldn't beat the prescription pill on my own. After trying to no avail to quench the urge, he decided to seek help from professionals who he hoped would help. Burt Reynolds is one of the very few brave personalities who personally walk themselves into rehab, unlike many high-profile personalities who fear to seek medical attention, not to talk of going in for rehabilitation. The major concern was always the scandal that would follow such news. But this was not the only issue that troubled this famous talent, because he did have back surgery in 2009 and was subjected to another, a quintuple bypass surgical procedure, the following year before he regained his full health. Several years after, he was asked why he infamously posed nude in the 1972 print publication. Burt said, "I wished I hadn't done that." He agreed that it was stupid to have done that. "I don't know what I was thinking." Never mind, Burt. You were enjoying youthful exuberance. In an industry filled with notorious squanderers and Casanovas, Burt made a name for himself and had a multitude of affairs. Very remarkable was one with Cannonball Run co-star Farrah Fawcett. He had fame, money, and few troubles. I still remember how his divorce case with Anderson ended with a need for him to sell as many of his luxury properties across the world. But with a lively soul like Burt, it wasn't over until it was over. Because if he's not frolicking with cocktail waitresses or gambling his money in infamous get-quick-rich ventures, even though he was already wealthy, he must be in one of the studios turning down roles most actors lobby to get. It is true that a few minutes before his death, Burt Reynolds rehearsed lines with his assistant before entering the ballroom, where he had a heart attack. He was such an infectious personality. We can't help but be curious about the scandalous stories that often swirl around Hollywood's elite. And speaking of scandal, in our next video, we'll be diving into the shocking and disturbing revelations about Ryan O'Neal's taboo desires.